Mariano Agmi with the final bell, and I am happy to be joined by Michael the Problem McKinson. Michael, how's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Welcome to the final bell, man. You're my first UK fighter on, and I've been wanting to interview you guys because there's a lot of action happening on that side of the pond.
There's a lot going on over here, to be honest. The UK are doing good things at the moment for boxing. Just wish I was included in it a little bit, you know? It's
Exactly.
very frustrating for me at the moment, but we're working. We're working away, hoping a phone call happens sooner rather than later.
Yeah, absolutely. And you fought here twice in the United States twice. So I know some American fans will be familiar with you, especially for your fight against Vergil Ortiz. But I thought maybe
Yeah.
for those who maybe are less familiar, can you tell us a little bit about your background when it comes to boxing?
Yeah. I fought in the States twice, but I've done a lot of camps there too. I was over in
In Philly, right?
October sparring boots in Philly.
Yeah,
Uh, I've been to New York a couple of times sparring at Cops and Kids and stuff like that in Brooklyn. So we love the States. We're over quite a lot.
awesome.
Um, I feel like I get more respect in terms of the boxing people, the media, and all things like that in America. They show me more love than back home. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm Michael McKinson. I'm 29 fights, two defeats. I lost to Vergil Ortiz for a final eliminator for the WBA. That was back in 2022.
Right.
And then I lost in October for the IBO
Mhm.
against South African Talani and Benge. I had an amazing camp. I was over with boots and things. It was a long camp, but it was good. I flew home 10 days before the fight,
Yeah.
sick with the flu, and in my head, I had such a good camp. I was still going to fight, uh, and that's a lesson that I've learned, that you can't go into a high level fight if if things ain't 100%. And I paid the price. I lost on points. 9 times out of 10, Tulani and Bengay I would have probably beat. He got me at my worst. But
Mhm.
but, but since then, it's um, it's been very quiet. I've been working away for a while now, and I've not got a promoter in the UK.
Right.
Um, Things get difficult if you don't have a promoter. Things get even more difficult if you don't have a promoter and you're an awkward southpaw. Um, and we're in the important years of my career now, so we want these big fights.
Yeah, yeah. And there's a lot going on in the welterweight division. But I guess like looking at sort of like your origin story, like how old were you when you got into boxing and why did you get into it? Like how did that story come about?
I was in a boxing gym from 5 years old,
Mhm.
as young as that. So my father, Michael Ballingal, is my coach,
Yeah.
and my manager as well. So me and my younger brother Lucas Ballingal, we were born into a boxing family. So Lucas followed me a little bit later on, but me from very young, um, I was boxing at home, and my daddy took me down to the local gym, and I've been around professionals from very young also. So it was always going to be a natural thing for me to grow up and turn professional one day, and I did that 10.5 years ago.
Mhm.
Um, I was. It's crazy. Not so long ago, I was a young up and coming fighter. Then you're kind of a veteran overnight. Yeah, I
It's
turned
funny how
30.
like the older you get in life, even, right? The older you get, it feels like the faster time goes, which is
Wow.
strange to wrap your head around. But you're
Yeah, I turned 31 a few weeks ago, and
yeah.
I've boxed for a long time, but I don't feel it. You know, don't
Yeah,
feel
look,
it.
and 31 is still, I would say, still relatively young. I would say probably around the prime of your career for
Yeah,
the time is now. And I know that that's kind of what you're feeling, right?
I do feel that based on obviously my luck, well, my defeat in October. A lot of people won't think that,
Hmm.
um, but they don't know what went on. So based on that, but for me personally, every camp I have, I improve.
Yeah.
Every camp I learn more about myself, my body. Um, You know, so as long as I'm learning more and I'm getting better and it's like that, I'm doing okay. It's
Yeah,
the minute things start to take that turn is when
right.
we'll have to start questioning things.
Right. And you seem to have good people around you, like your father, who
Yeah,
has seen you perform throughout the years and would know, right, if he sees like a decline.
yeah, of course, of course. You know, you learn more about yourself, and I've had 29 fights, and I learn more in every camp I have. And I've got a lot of hunger right now. On my way up, I was the B side quite a bit.
Yep.
Like went to the and would a successful B side for a long time. Got the opportunity against Vergil. Since then, I came back. I was an A side for a little bit, and didn't like that. Didn't like the being the A side. I didn't like
Oh, really?
it.
Was it pressure?
Kind of, you know, when you're the favourite. It was new territory for me, and I was a
Yeah.
favourite for quite a bit, and then took a loss against. And now I've gone back to having to prove people wrong again,
Right.
having to, you know, and I'm hungrier than ever. I'm spending a bit of time away every other week. I'm away from my family. I have a 2 month old baby boy at home, and my daughter also, and
Yeah.
so I've got a young family at home, and I'm taking myself away. And I don't have a fight. I don't have a date currently, and I'm taking myself away. No
Right.
distractions, having it hard, and in the hope we get something.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I guess looking at your were you ever signed to a major promoter, or were you always independent?
So 2021, I was the B side, and I went fought another British. He was an undefeated guy called Chris Congo,
Oh yeah. Yep.
and it was on the Dylan White Alexander Povetkin undercard. I think it was my 19th professional fight, but it was my first time on a TV card.
Right. Right.
I was 4-1 underdog, and we went and we tore up the script,
Yeah.
and we beat him. And then Eddie and Matchroom signed me for 3 fights, and took the second and the third fight were the two America fights on the Golden Boy cards.
Yes.
So them 3 fights are the only fights out of 29 professional fights I've had promotion. I've had promoters helping me, and I've had backing. So the
Right.
other 26, I've done it the hard way.
Right. And you know what? And that explains why you have so many fights and most of them wins against so many undefeated prospects, right?
Sure.
Um,
If you look, you do your research on my career. I was okay. I got to 10-0, but then anything after that, I was the B side a lot of times. I've fought a lot of undefeated fighters. I've beat them in their backyard. I've done it the hard way, and I feel like I don't get that much respect and or that much opportunity for what I've done. Uh, but you know, I left a good name in the States both times.
yeah.
The first time I was supposed to fight Ortiz, and he was hospitalised and rhabdomyosis, and I got to LA. There were 70 people from my hometown in LA on a flight, and Ortiz has pulled out. So over the course of 3 days, I said yes to I think 7 different opponents,
Yeah.
and I feel like the guy in the end it was Alex Martin,
Right.
who was a Golden Boy fighter, which was he was flew in the week before, something like. Later down the line, I found out from his old coach that they already knew about the fight weeks ago. So, so
Yeah.
it was.
You got to get ready on the fly, right? For a style that you weren't prepared for.
I've
And you
never
still
fought a
won.
southpaw. It was the first southpaw I fought, and
Yeah.
in the end, I was that motivated to have my US debut. I said, I don't care who it is.
Right.
In them 3 days, I said yes to um, Alexis Roger, Blair
Good fighter.
Cobbs,
Yeah.
um, Rincon. Is it Rincon?
Yes. Alexis Rincon, right? Yeah.
Whoever the more
Yeah.
experienced one was, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of them was, and another guy was 6'5", Panzic.
That one I'm not familiar with.
Ivan Panzic. Anyway, there was a lot of
A lot
names,
of
and
good fighters. A lot of good fighters. Alexis Roach is
wait,
still a good fighter. Yeah.
every single one of them, I said yes, just at the click of the finger, just because I wanted to fight. And I earned
Yeah.
a lot of respect from you guys that week. And
For sure.
I fought Alex Martin, who's a negative southpaw,
Yeah.
and it wasn't the most eye-catching fight, but we got it done, and then we got the Ortiz fight rescheduled. So yeah.
So yeah, so and that's a perfect timing because I wanted to ask you about the Vergil Ortiz fight, and I know that you suffered an injury sort of later in that fight. I
Sure.
was curious, did you have an injury going into the fight, or was it something that happened in the matchup itself?
No, it happened in the fight. I will always say for the Virgil Ortiz fight, mentally I was 150%.
Yeah,
Physically, I was 150%. You know, I was very confident. I know I was a big underdog, but I was so well prepared. Going into the fight, the plan it was. I don't think he'd been past 7 rounds at the time. Uh, the plan was get through the first six.
yeah,
Everyone thinks he's going to knock you out in 3 rounds. Get through them first six, and he's a young guy. He's going to have whispers in his ear, like, "Why haven't got?" And then I was going to start talking to him, and I was going to start increasing the pace, the output. So the first six had passed. I think I'd won 2 of the rounds. I'd cut him, and I was still there.
yeah,
Shots were bouncing off my chin, bouncing off my body, and I was taking them fine.
yeah.
Um, but with me at the time, because I'm a fighter that boxes off of agility and things like that, I had a very thin protector, um, and it didn't have a lot of padding on the sides.
Yeah.
It was quite thin around the sides, and um,
And that was
Virgil,
by design? Was that by design because of your wanting to?
not custom, not
Okay,
custom, but I found a protector that
right.
really suited me, and I wore it for a long time.
Yeah,
And he hit that hard, and it was nothing illegal or anything like that, but the ligaments on my hip completely shattered. So I couldn't put weight onto my right foot. I couldn't throw my right hand, and but there was not a point any shots of his hurt except from when that happened. And kind of for a round, my dad uh, let me box on pure pride, but really
mhm.
I couldn't do anything. So he pulled me out, but yeah, it was very painful. I remember after the fight, I couldn't even get out of the ring because I had to bend down, and it was tough. And it obviously taking my first defeat, it was a hard one. But in that fight, I feel like I showed the world who I was, um, and you can never be proud in a loss, but I took a lot from that fight, and there were so many positives to leave Fort Worth, Texas, with, so
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah, of course.
Yeah,
But
and I was,
after
yeah,
that,
yeah.
I left with a lot of kind of reassurance that things were going to be okay.
It
You
should
know,
have been, right? I mean, because one of the surprising things about that fight going in is that you took it to a pressure fighter. Like you pushed the pace right from the beginning. I remember you threw like a big left hand right away as soon as it started. So there was like,
you had to earn respect.
yeah, yeah,
Like everyone thought he was going to walk through me. He probably thought he was going to walk through me,
yeah,
but he boxed a completely different mentality that night, and
mhm,
I had to earn his respect, which I did. After a few rounds, he realised he couldn't do that what he planned to me, and he had to change things, and he had to slow it down. He had to pick better shots and things like that. So yeah, there was a lot of positives to take. Although it was a loss, there was a lot of positives, and you know, I should get a lot more credit. I should get opportunities because I am a world class fighter that's just getting sidelined at the moment.
yeah, yeah. I mean, looking at your resume, I mean, you like I said earlier, you've beaten a lot of undefeated fighters. There's a
Sure.
fighter from Argentina that you beat who was undefeated, Verdon. You also
Yeah.
beat, yeah, and Chris Congo you mentioned earlier. You won a lot of regional titles. Um, it is with boxing, it's just so strange how certain people get the opportunities and then other, even and not it's not just because they're punchers, because a guy like Shakur Stevenson is not a puncher, but he gets a lot of
Yeah.
opportunities, right? And so it kind of depends a lot of times.
There was once a time I was linked to fighting Alexis Roger.
Yeah,
I was linked to fighting him. There was once a time I was linked to fighting Blair Cobbs.
yeah,
Why have these fights not happened?
right, right.
Um, like and I really respect Lex and his team.
Mhm.
Um, he was due to fight a few months ago. He was actually going to fly me out for a sparring partner for him. Um, when I lost to Ortiz, him and his coach Hector, they were the first in my dressing room afterwards, and I'll always remember that. But
Yeah.
like, let's get it on, you know, like him, Blair Cobbs. I've been linked to fight these guys in the past, so
Mhm.
why can't they make it happen now?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree. Um, thinking about the fact that you shared the ring with Vergil Ortiz and you've also shared the ring with Jaron Ennis, as you mentioned earlier. And those two get linked a lot together
Yeah,
for a future fight, a super fight, hopefully at some point. It'll have to happen at 154 now. What
sure.
are your thoughts on that matchup, like based on their strengths since you've been in the ring with both of them?
Yeah, I suppose there's probably not many that have been in the ring with both as a professional, maybe.
Right.
I feel like it was tough in Bosie's dungeon to go there not knowing it's 4 minute rounds with short breaks.
Yeah.
It was tough. Boots was carrying a lot of weight over. I was a few weeks out from my fight, um, and he was big, and how talented he was. He's incredible. He's so talented. Um, and the 3 weeks I was there, I learned so much. I think I sparred him 4 times. I don't know if it was 6 or 8 4 minute rounds, 20 seconds. I don't know how it was tough rounds. And every single second of every spar was life or death type style, You know how it is. You hear the stories, how hard it is to go to these gyms and spar them.
Particularly in
Now,
Philly, right? Their gym wars, that's what they're famous for.
of course, and you hear stories about gym knockouts and all the time and stuff. Now, at the end of after a few spars, and I earned everybody in that gym's respect, and I felt like I was one of them, one
Yeah.
of the team at the end of it. So if I compare the two, it's tough because I, me personally, I've always been a lot better performing on the night than I do in sparring.
Yeah.
Now, if I was to go and spar Boots, how prepared I was when I fought Ortiz,
Right.
and if it was a fight, if I went to fight Boots, I probably would have done really well. Um, and but I didn't, and I can't really compare. Like, I had good rounds with him.
Right.
Definitely earned respect. Um, but based on if it was a spar, Boots is better.
Mhm.
But I feel like Ortiz has proven more in the fight, especially his last two fights. His
Yeah.
last two fights against Madrimov and Borchek, I feel like he's learned so much from them fights. Um, listen, I'm still on the fence, but I'm still
I
on
am
the
too.
fence. Yeah,
That's why I'm asking you. Yeah.
I'm still on the fence, but
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, Ortiz and his team are gentlemen. They're unbelievable people.
Yeah.
Um, they've got nothing but nice words to say about me, even to this very day.
Yeah.
So I've got a lot of time, lot of respect for them. But the same with Bosie. Bosie gave me his time over there and things like that. So yeah, I'll sit on the fence. But they're both incredible athletes.
Yeah.
Um, they really are. Like, I know I've never sparred anyone as good as Boots.
Yeah.
That is true.
Mhm.
And I've never fought anyone as good as Ortiz.
Right.
And that's a fact.
Yeah. It's a
Um,
true 50-50, right? When it comes
and,
to
and, and, and I've sparred some real good fighters over the years, you
yeah.
know, over my long career. So yeah, I'll give
Now I
both
know,
of them props.
yeah, for sure. I mean, and hopefully that fight does get made at some point in the future. Because I know that Ennis at some point is going to have to move up. He seems really
Oh,
busy.
he will. He will.
Yeah.
Um, like, I thought he was going to 6 months ago.
Yeah.
He wanted the unification with Stanionis,
Mhm.
but surely he's going to move up now. No, like
Yeah, unless he can get lure Brian Norman into
Brian
the
Norman.
fight.
But
Yeah,
isn't Brian Norman taking the fight in Japan?
he is.
I've
He
just
is.
seen. So, uh, listen, I feel like that says it all. And I feel like Boots is going to move up, but we'll see. We'll see.
Well, you know what? Hopefully it gives guys like you an opportunity, as long as, you know, you're able to position yourself beforehand,
Yeah,
that you can maybe compete for one of those vacant titles, right? If you
of
moved up.
course. I've
Yeah,
I've proven that I'm a world class fighter.
for sure.
Um, you know, I can mix it with them, and I'm just hoping that we still get opportunities.
Yeah. Now, and my next question is related to Jaron Ennis also because, you know, just looking at the welterweight picture, and now there are only three champions, right? And so you got Brian
Yeah.
Norman, you got Mario Barrios, who's going to fight Manny Pacquiao. I don't know why, but I guess because of the star, of course. And you have Jaron Ennis. Out of those three, which would you prefer to fight if you were to be able to choose?
Whoever's paying the most.
Right.
Um, well, who would Boots? He holds two of the belts,
Yeah, he holds two of them.
and he holds two of the belts, and he's the best out of all three.
Mhm.
Um, I feel like everybody's after the Mario Barrios fight because he's the weaker champion. I feel like that's I feel like that's how Conor Ben sees it.
Yeah.
That's his best chance of winning a world title.
Mhm.
Um, so he's the weaker champion. And I'd not seen much of Brian Norman since I'd gone over to spar Boots, and they was talking about him in the gym, and I've seen a little bit of him now, and he's a good fighter, but he hasn't really had that fight which people can look round and say he's a genuine, because there's world level and then there's the top world level, and he hasn't. Um, so for me, it would be the main one. Surely you aim for the main one.
Yeah, of course. And you know him. So I mean, there are things that you can exploit, and I'm sure he's going to feel the same way. So it might make
Sure.
for a really interesting fight.
Sure. But at this stage, I will take anyone. I really
Well,
will.
and look, so part two of my question, you know, I looked at the champions, and then of course I looked at the rest. And one good thing about welterweight is that a lot of the best 140 pounders who are stars are moving up, right? And you have
Sure.
Ryan Garcia, and you have Rolly Romero, who is kind of a quasi star, but because he beat Ryan, you know, he's going to be in demand. You've got Devin Haney, of course. And then in your country, you have Conor Ben, and there's a bunch of other welterweights. But I think that, you know, given that you've won a lot of those titles, like, so to me, you're kind of above domestic level at this point, because we could talk about Patty Donovan and Lewis Crocker and Harlem Eubank, but I feel like, you know, those guys have half as many fights as you, and you should be aiming more at that world level.
I
So
feel
when you look
I
at
feel
that,
like I feel
yeah,
like Paddy Donovan and Lewis Crocker, they fought for an IBF final
right,
eliminator.
an
So
imitator, right? Yeah,
so
yeah,
they're gonna be in line. Like I
yeah,
feel they've got a rematch. So they're
right,
above domestic level,
yeah,
100%. So but yeah, like listen, throw me in the mix with those guys.
right,
Like I
right,
deserved. I've been top of the tree domestically in the British
yeah,
like rankings. Top. I was number one for a while. Top three for probably about 7 years. A
yeah,
long time. So why are they not speaking about me? Why are the promoters not mentioning my name? Why are the rivals not mentioning my name? Because the fact is, I'm an awkward southpaw that make good fighters look rubbish.
yeah.
And
And you're aggressive. It's not like you're a defensive only fighter. I feel like you're aggressive, and you can box.
well, I have that is the what people say. I'm boring. I don't knock people out. Now you look at my last five fights. I've come on the front foot. I've stopped a couple of them. And like even the fight I lost, I had nothing in my legs, and I stood in front of him just throwing whatever I could.
Right.
You know, so it's not as if I've been boring as of late at all. There have been boring fights of mine. Alex Martin, boring. A few others, they have been boring, but I'm not as boring as what people make out.
Yeah.
I stood there in the pocket with Vergil Ortiz at times.
Right.
Come on,
Exactly.
come on,
And so
like
right. So if two negative sort of like if two like the counter punchers are put together in a fight, that's what you're going to get is a chess match, right? So it's kind of natural.
I think if Virgil fought anyone in the UK at 147, 154 pounds, no one would have done as good as me. And
Mhm.
that's a fact. What you think Conor Ben would have done as good as me? He would have walked through Conor Ben in 2 rounds. Boots as well would have walked through Conor Ben in 2 rounds. Like people need to kind of sit back and take note.
Yeah.
Like, and don't get me wrong, Conor Benn's got my full respect for the fight a couple of weeks ago.
Great,
That's
great
like
fight.
he's never really had my respect in terms of I don't really like that he's not done anything. He's beaten old Algieri, Chris Van Heeden, but he really his name's bigger than what he's done.
Yeah.
But a few weeks ago, that fight, you like take my hat off to him. It was really incredible.
Yeah. I mean, kind of like what you were saying, like you took a loss, but you felt like you made a point. And I think with
Yeah,
Conor Benn, similarly, he made a strong point there too. He was fighting a much
sure,
bigger guy. He fought
sure.
valiantly, though.
You say that, but he did, but he had every advantage possible. It was Eubank Jr. that had every disadvantage in that fight with the rehydration, the making 160, the not allowed to wear the gloves he was supposed to wear, and the two fines he had to pay, and like Eubank had every disadvantage there and every reason to lose, and he didn't. He had nothing in his legs, and so listen, respect to both of them guys. That's unbelievable for British boxing. Um, they've created their own legacy.
Mhm. Now, if you were Conor Benn, do you take a rematch and fight outside of your weight class again, or do you go back to welterweight and try to fight for a title? What would you do?
Well, he's fought at junior middleweight for the last couple of years, the last few fights. So I feel like that they've used he's jumping up two weights. He's
Mhm.
not fought at 147 in over 3 years.
Yeah,
So I don't think it's as big of a jump as people was making out.
yeah,
On the other side, if he does go back down to 147, how will he do? You've seen it in the past with other people. They've jumped up weights, come back down, and was never the same fighter. So we just have to wait and see how it pans out. But I'm always here.
yeah, yeah.
Like,
No, for sure.
listen, but no, he's got his path set, and good luck to him because he's got a bit of more respect now.
Yeah, yeah. And you never know, Michael, how things pan out, right? Depending on opportunities out there.
They
When
all,
I was,
they all know about me. They all
yeah,
know about me. They all
yeah,
know, and like they all know like how good I am and what I can do.
right.
They just don't want to mention my name because then I'm relevant again.
Yeah. So do you feel like when it comes to you, do you think a lot of these fighters look at you as a high risk, low reward, and that's sort of,
Exactly.
yeah.
Is that even though out of all the British fighters, I've probably got the best CV.
Mhm.
I've got the best resume out of most of the British 147s,
Yeah, yeah.
but I'm still a high risk, low reward. So I don't know. I'll get my respect maybe one day when I retire. I'll get my
Well,
credit.
well, hopefully they give you at least a chance to kind of to test you and see where you could be. Um,
I deserve another chance.
yeah,
I really do. Like I said, I'm away training now.
yeah,
I'm getting fit. My weight's coming down, and
yeah.
hopefully we get a phone call.
Yeah. Well, as I was preparing for this interview, there is another fighter, another welterweight that that I've interviewed many times, because he's from the Northeast US. And his name is Rashidi Ellis. And he was in the mix around that time where you were fighting with Golden Boy fighters or being
Yeah.
considered some of these fighters. He's another guy who has a tough time getting opportunities, despite the fact that he's very talented. He only has one
Did,
loss.
he had a couple of years out.
Yeah, he had like a tough loss when he hurt his hand against Ruben Villa. He had beaten Alexis Rocha. That was his biggest win. It still is his biggest win. And he then lost that one fight. And then I think they kind of shelved him for a while. He got out of his contract with Golden Boy, fought with the PBC for a bit, and then and now he's with CES Boxing, which is like a New England-based boxing
Right.
promoter. So he's another guy who's like looking for a world title shot. I think he has the talent to compete at that level. It's just a matter of who's going to give him an opportunity. So sometimes you think about it and you're like, wait, should these two guys who are both sort of struggling to find
Of course.
their way, as long as it's for something, right? Whether it's for like a regional title that gives you that maybe hopefully mandatory status, would
I,
you fight someone like that?
I would come in a heartbeat.
Yeah,
The only tough thing over here is I don't have a promoter. I don't have people looking after me in the promotions like, for whatever reason. So listen, have gloves, will travel,
yeah,
and,
yeah,
and, and that's the mentality. Listen, I proved it before. Give me enough time and to prepare
yeah,
the best I can, and I will fight any 147 on the planet. I proved that when I packed my bags and flew to Dallas, Texas to fight Vergil Ortiz in his backyard. I came to the ring to a cauldron of booze, a complete cauldron of booze and hostility, and I loved every second of it.
Yeah.
I came to the ring with all of that hostility, and I left the ring to a standing ovation and cheers and claps and stuff like that. So listen, I was born for a hostile environment. Give me an opportunity, and I'll come 100%.
Yeah. Well, thinking about the factors that might impact, whether you get opportunities or not more, in the UK. I know you're from Portsmouth, right? What's boxing like in that region?
I'm probably the most successful. Actually, there's a good prospect who's fought on a couple of the Riyadh season cards called Mark Chamberlain.
Oh,
He's
yes.
from
Sure. Yeah.
he's from a little while up the road from me.
Yeah.
Then you've got myself, who everyone knows me and what I've done, and also my brother, who's kind of a British level fighter as well, Lucas Ballingall. So, other than that, there's a couple of other 3-0 guys, 4-0 guys, and we've got a female in the gym as well who's had a few pro fights. And then, other than that, it's a small town for boxing.
Yeah.
If we were from London, or if we were from Manchester or Liverpool, we'd probably get more opportunities.
Yeah. No, for sure. And looking at, I know we're halfway through the year. Looking at the second half of the year, how ideally would it go for you? I would imagine you would want at least one tune-up fight just to kind of get yourself back in it before you
Well,
take on someone big, right?
listen, if we had a big phone call right now, I'm ready to go. Time waits for no man.
Yeah.
I'm 31 years old. I've seen what it's like at the top, kind of. Um,
Yeah.
I fought in October, then I had a small kind of tune up in December on a small card, 6 rounder. I'm
Yeah.
ready to go straight away. I'd love to fight. Listen, June, July. I'd love to fight June, July,
Oh,
and
wow.
then on the back end of the year.
Yeah.
I feel like there's still room to put two decent fights in this year.
Definitely.
Um,
Yeah, for two, for sure. Definitely.
I don't feel like I can get any more than two this year now.
Yeah.
Really.
Mhm.
But listen, the phone is on, and I am ready to go.
That's what's up, man. That's great to hear. Last question for you is, as a kid, right? Who did you look up to as a kid when you thought about like a fighting style or someone that you really like to watch?
Uh,
Yeah.
um, as a kid, the reason I fell in love with like I was born into a boxing family,
Right.
so I remember having posters and videos. You remember before DVDs,
Yeah, for sure.
before of Prince
Yeah,
Nassim
of
Hamid,
course, of course.
and I feel like if you grew up the same sort of time as me, any young kid were in love with Prince Nassim.
Yeah.
For me, it's him. As I've got older, uh, I love Sugar Ray Leonard. I
Yeah.
love Sugar Ray Leonard. I love Pernell Whitaker. Um, I love Thomas Hearns. But for me, the reason I fell in love with boxing was Prince Nassim,
Yeah. I'll never forget that fight he had in New York against Kevin Kelly.
Madison Square Garden.
Amazing
Yeah,
fight. Yeah, yeah. What was it? Six
Incredible.
knockdowns or something? Yeah.
1997, I think it
Oh,
was.
was it seven? Yeah. Yeah.
Incredible.
Amazing fight. Amazing fight. Anything you'd like to say to your fans who will be watching this either at home or maybe hopefully some on this side of the pond, and anyone you'd like to call out?
Listen, I want Blair Cobbs. He's mentioning a lot of people
Mhm.
over in the UK. Obviously, bigger names where he's gonna get paid well and things like that. But he's had one fight in 3 years.
Been a while, yeah.
Beggars
Yeah,
can't be choosers for Blair Cobbs.
yeah.
I want Blair Cobbs. He's called me out in the past. Um, Respectfully, I've met him like before, and he is like a respectful guy off of camera. And he had a good win last year. Let's face it, 4-weight world champion Adrian Broner. But everyone knows the way Adrian Broner lives his life nowadays, and it's not the same Adrian Broner that was for 10 years ago. And he beat an old washed up problem that night. Now this is a real problem right here, and that's a fact. So, um, that is a fight that I'd like. I feel in terms of the most realistic call out would probably be Blair Cobbs. I could call out lots of people, but will I get it? Um, but just put me back into the mix. Like he's trying to call these guys out. He's trying to call fellow Brits out and that. I'm a Brit that would fight him with a
Yeah,
click of the fingers. So, but anyone, man, anyone. We we want to be active. We're training as if we're active. All my people and my supporters are all waiting for me to just announce something. My
yeah,
sponsors that are really looking after me, and I've got complete thanks in my sponsors because I couldn't do what I do without them.
for sure.
So so yeah, man. Hopefully, I'm optimistic that something comes off.
Well, look, you're staying in shape. You're going to different parts, so people are seeing you. They're seeing that you're active, and you're, like, you even came to my attention because of some of what you've been putting up on social media.
There's a few people have said that we've had a couple of phone calls because of what's going on social media. Nothing's come off, but like I'm gonna keep pumping social media. I'm gonna keep airing my frustration,
You
and
should.
then hopefully we get something.
Yeah, and look, good things will come in. You work hard. You got to stay active, stay in shape like you are, and good things will come.
Yeah, fingers
Matter
crossed.
of time. Matter of time. Remember Bernard
Yeah.
Hopkins.
That's it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. All right, look, Michael, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Michael, the problem, McKinson,
Real problem.
the real problem. Take
That's
it.
it. Thank you.